You will now be
recording. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to the CA Harvest SCM Vision and Roadmap webcast. I think I know many of you from in the community, but my name is Len Thompson. I am the community manager for all of CA's mainframe BU communities, and we are joined today by Steve Solomon and also a couple other speakers. But before I hand you off to them, just a little bit of housekeeping. If I see many of you are listening to this via the audio broadcast rather than on the phone line. If that is the case, you will not be able to ask questions via your voice, but we ask that you use the Q&A box right in the WebEx. If you don't see the Q&A box in the lower right of your screen, in the upper right you will see a question mark. Just click on that and it will open up for you. Please feel free to use that throughout the session, and we'll make sure we monitor it, and we'll answer as many questions as we can during and after the presentation. So with that out of the way, I'm going to hand you off to Steve Solomon. Take it away, Steve.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our community broadcast. It's been a while since we've had one, so we thought we would double up and do a roadmap presentation and some new technology demonstration that we're currently working on that is almost ready. So should be an exciting webcast today. If you're listening to this on the recording, please go out to the site and see if the new cross-product merge has already been posted or the final 13, because you're going to want to get started with it immediately after you see this. For the rest of us, we're going to have to wait just a little while before we can bring this in-house. First of all, we always have to start with the lawyers and a disclaimer. So the roadmap, we've worked really hard to look at what we're doing today and what's going to come in the near-term future. However, all futures are subject to change. That's why we have a legal disclaimer. We work on an agile basis. You may come up as a customer and say, I've got this great idea, and we may say, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do, and change our roadmap for you. So that's why we're flexible. And just to let you know before you make a financial commitment on anything that you see or hear in today's presentation, please reach out to me, Steve Solomon, your product manager, and let us give you the current information at the time so we're all aware. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover some big picture items because I think you're going to like where CA is going. We're going to cover the hardware roadmap where Harvest is going. We're going to talk about some innovation that we're currently working on with Atomic, and then we're going to do a presentation by our engineering organization of the new cross-project merge presentation facility. So, and then we'll have an open and Q&A at the end. So just a little bit of housekeeping up front. Rose is still getting a lot of emails. Rose K-Catch was your product manager for quite a while. And so I kind of recircled back around. So many of you may have known me from 10 years ago when I had Harvest originally. Bill Hunt took it from me, and I think Bill passed it to Rose, and now it's back to me. So it is interesting, but when it came up and they needed it, I said, hey, you know, I've got a lot of experience from Harvest, and hopefully I'll be able to continue to work with you. Rose does say hi and wishes everybody the best. My background, I span mainframe, IBM I development, and distributed development. So hopefully that's a good skill set for you. I worked in software change management tools for more than 10 years in my career, probably like 15 years in total between mainframe and distributed. So what about CA? So you have to understand that, you know, where CA goes, Harvest follows, and vice versa. And so because we're part of a big company, and that's how we get financing. But the exciting change is that CA is not an operations management company anymore. For several years, that's what we mostly sold, operations management, service management tools. So we did those kind of supporting organizations. Now, CA is a software development company. That is what we're at because every other business is a software development business. All companies now are underpinned by software. And so as we make this change, we have to say, as we as CA Technologies can help customers build software, there's many more things that we can bring in. But when you take that shift and say every company, no matter what kind are you, banks, insurance, obviously, but anything, even from automotive companies are software companies these days. So all companies are software companies. So the whole key to success is how do we build better software faster? And so CA has started working on this integration solution between CA products and non-CA products that we call the modern software factory. So you're going to hear CA sales folks, you're going to hear CA online, you're going to see posting our commentary on our blogs a lot on the modern software factory. Basically is, it's not just dev, right? That's the big key. It is everything from how your business units collect the requirements, how they define requirements, how do they pass them off to you in engineering, how do you build, how do you do the software change, how do you build as a compile and link, how do you deploy to test, how do you deploy to production, how do you know that it's working well? I mean, if you put in a change and all of a sudden performance goes to crap, you are not fit for use. So insight is a big part of it. And then underpinning everything across the board as a fundamental part is security. We cannot just assume that our software is going to run inside the firewall and it's going to be protected. Security has to be a key part of everything that we do. So when we look at this in total, it is how do we do this end-to-end software development that is part of a modern software factory. So not only are we speaking there, I'll put it in a colloquial phrase, is we're putting our money where our mouth is. Our acquisitions, and CA has done a lot of acquisitions over the years, have all been towards this building out this modern software factory, everything since 2011. So if you look at where CA has been investing, building out a DevOps culture, a modern software factory enablement, we started with 2011 with ITKO, which is service virtualization. How do you create multiple logical service or testing areas? So you have customers that you're going to do lots of testing. Everybody needs a whole test set of data, environments. Maybe you're doing third-party connections and REST APIs. This is where ITKO came in and said, with service virtualization, we can build all that up. We can help you test better, test faster, shift your development left. Nolio came in for application release automation and deployment. Layer 7 is API management. Underpinning all of this, don't forget we have the API economy and REST-based APIs, and maybe some SOAP is still in your environment. But how do we maintain those? If I publish REST APIs to critical resources, how do I know the right people are using them? How do I know I'm not going to get a denial of service attack? That's where Layer 7 or API management comes in. A big one for us was Rally. Rally, which we now call CA Agile Central. How do we manage work items? How do we manage features, user stories, defects, test cases? We do all that with Agile Central. It is deployed across CA today, so all of our teams, that's how we're managing your work backload. When you guys ask us to do things, how do we get it into our backlog? How do we work on it? Grid Tools came along as a testing tools. So Grid Tools does test automation, test case. It helps you design test cases. It doesn't do any good to have 500 test cases in your application if you're testing the same thing 400 times. So what Grid Tools does is it lets you look through your code paths and make sure that you're testing all of the different areas and that you're only using the test that you need to do a complete test. Blaze Meter for performance management, Exedium for people management as part of that security. Atomic came into our fold here in 2017. They have a very modern engine that does workload automation, application release automation deployment, and service automation, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. And then Veracode for code scanning. So Veracode for code scanning, having gone through this with my teams, I can tell you that it is extensive. The number of things it reports on are eye-opening. But if you want to actually make sure that all of your security gaps are closed, the great combination of Blaze Meter for online testing, Veracode for code scanning, these are great new features. And that really fits into this. How do we be agile? How do we get our automated DevOps? And how do we provide underpinning security across the entire process? That is what we're calling the modern software factory. Hopefully you'll join us. We have a fun saying here that 40% of our people here at CA Technologies are software engineers. We have a lot of software engineers. It's quite public in our public report. We spend over $600 million a year on organic development just with our own engineering teams. We do a lot of it, and we have one of everything. So as a company of acquisitions, you are no different. So if you come to us and say, yeah, but we have this tool, we have that tool, we have this tool, we agree with you, we have them all. I'm not sure that we have many app dev tools that have ever been sold that we don't have somewhere in CA. So now let's talk about Harvest and where we're going with Harvest. So some of the recent history, so you guys know that the R12 series, to let you know my previous history, I was the product manager from the R7 conversion to the R12 and the R12.1, where we rewrote the system and took away the fact client, went to an Eclipse-based client with 12.0, and then did the Visual Studio integration with 12.1. So I'm happy to see that those did reach end of service because that was some 10 years ago or so, or 8 years ago, I guess. And then the 12.1.3 and the 12.5 all have reached end of service. So if you are on one of those, please start planning your upgrade. Now, as you plan your upgrade, please consider 13 complete because that is the release we're currently working on. So 12.6 is GA and supported. There is no announced end of support on 12.6 today. Maybe in about 6 or 8 months, I'll put it out. What happens with an end of service announcement is we always give you at least 12 months notice and 12 to 18 months. So don't fear, 12.6 isn't going anywhere for a while. but do start considering it if you're on a 12.6. Look at the new features that have been released in the version 13 release and see if those don't make sense to you. If you have a large number of projects and you have to do administration across a lot of projects, you're going to want the bulk admin update. For your developers, if they do a lot of projects, cross-project merge, you're going to want this new feature we're going to show you. So take a look at the features and see if you benefit from them, and then you can plan your upgrade accordingly. So we did try something different with Harvest. So we came out as our business unit, and we said, how do we be agile and yet support a lot of customers that have huge infrastructures? We created a solution called Incremental Release Process, or the IR process. We use this across several different products in CA. It wasn't necessarily successful. What it came back is customers said, I'm not going to upgrade the latest release. I will stay where I'm at. We probably had more customers say, I'm going to stay on 12.6 rather than go to the first release of the 13, because they didn't want to have to take a new release of an increment in every 3 or 6 months and apply it. So while it had some great sides on the drawing board, it also had some downsides in actual use. And so one of the things we're going to announce today is that this next release is going to be Increment 3 or IR3 of Release 13, and it will be the end of the IRs for version 13. This next release will be the version 13 complete. So no more changes in the 13 line, no more IRs, and we will be moving away from the IR process, and we're going to move to a new process called continuous delivery, where we're going to go to a process where we'll continue to send out fixes as PTFs. And depending on the enhancement, if some of the enhancements from the community, if they can be made available as a PTF, we will do that, and we'll try to get them out there and get people to verify them, and then do new releases on a periodic basis when we have enough work to go through, put it all together, test it all, package it together, and make a recommendation for you to upgrade to it. So it'll be a slightly different process, but the good news is there will be no more mandatory. If you join the IR process, you have to do an upgrade every time we release an IR. That became difficult for you and for us. And so I think it was a great experience on how to be agile, but in the agile methodology, we adopted the methodology. We tried to adapt it for our purpose, and finally came out that it was more negative than positive, and so we are creatures of change, and we'll be moving forward. This is probably the slide that you joined for. So this is the new Harvest roadmap. So this is what I said. This is just from this month. In fact, I think we finalized everything in the last week and a half as we were getting ready for this team presentation. So it's kind of critical. You can see that the Harvest engineering team, led by Vijay Desai and his organization, have been working very, very hard to continue to develop new features and do certifications across the board. Harvest has a lot of certifications with a lot of different development tools, a lot of different platforms. And so it's a constant mission of ours to keep current. As part of this IR3 work, including the new development I've been working on for cross-project merge and BizTalk support in the Visual Studio. If you're not familiar with that, please go look it up. It is a type of project that you can create in Visual Studio, and so that's now going to be supported. But we've done certifications for Windows 2016, Eclipse 4.7, Java 9, SUSE Linux 12, AIX 7.2. So these are all part of this current work effort. At the bottom of the V13, R13, there is a box that I want you to call out, and please notice. So this release, IR3, is going to be the final release, and so it'll be what we call GA complete of the Harvest 13 package. There was an item that we carried on the roadmap. We did a lot of investigation. We did a lot of development in and found out it just didn't pay off. Sometimes that's what happens. It was a great idea, and this was to do Oracle proactive warnings. So what happens is if you don't start and stop your Oracle environment, you don't do a refresh, clean out some of your buffers, things can slow down. So we said, maybe what we should do is we can take a performance snapshot today and then do another one a day or two, and if it's different, maybe we can say, maybe you need to have your administrators look at your system. It ended up that taking the timing, doing the snapshots, doing the comparisons didn't provide a significant amount of benefit for the amount of work that it was and trouble it was. So, we do understand that we do get, with the temporary tables that are created inside of Oracle, sometimes it does slow down. But if you've been working with support, you already have a methodology to recycle once a week. Whatever that methodology you've developed for your use, please continue to do that. This proactive warning didn't work out, so we have canceled that line of development. It was on a previous roadmap. That's why I bring it up. You know, we try to do innovation. We try to bring in new things. Sometimes, much like the IR process, we find out that, you know, overall they're not a great benefit to you. And so we will pivot and change accordingly. So that is my commitment to you as product manager, that we will try to do innovation, and when it doesn't work, I will try to pull the plug on it so that we can do new innovation that does work and get you guys more stuff quicker. All right, so a lot of our focus right now is on the V13 complete release and getting that out and making sure it's high quality and running all of our automated regression tests. We're also starting to look at what's in the future in our continuous delivery model. We have some great ideas out there. So there's a lot of customer enhancements. You guys are fabulous in the community. Please keep contributing. Please continue to vote out there in the community. So we have a lot of enhancements. We have some improvements in our atomic commit, refactoring history. These are all things that have come from our development where we can see that we have gaps. We have a lot of more certifications. This is just a short list. This is what we already know of today, which is on our near-term certification list. There are some additional works, build verifications for IBM AIX, Oracle, Solaris. There's all kinds of wonderful things there. Extend the RESTful API. I think this is a desire, so don't take this as a commitment, but we all want more REST APIs. So we will see when we get there. So nothing under the under consideration is committed. It's all the things we've been collecting that you guys have voted on, that our engineers and our architects have said, hey, these are things we need to do. And, you know, what can we prioritize and what can we start delivering to you? So, you know, understand that our commitment is always to your customer cases. So if you call in with a case, you're going to be first priority. Certifications are going to be second. And then new development comes third. So new development comes in spurts, you might say. Because if everybody starts upgrading to 13 right now and they start calling for help and asking for participation in your upgrade program, that will, of course, slow down our development. So no stated time frame. There are a lot of things we're going to do a lot of innovation and research into, and then we'll determine when we can release them to you, our customers. All right, talking about innovation. So we've been working a lot with our Atomic organization. So CA acquired Atomic in 2017. They're huge. They're a very large European-based company. They do all kinds of automation, and they do some very, very advanced release automation. So there's a question, would you guys be interested? You already have a release and deployment solution for your DevOps. Would you like a product that will pick up once you've done the software changes, you've checked them into Harvest, you've done your build, now you have your executable, whether you stage it in Harvest or not, and now you need to deploy it to a testing environment. And maybe it's 5 test environments. I have a unit test, a system test, an acceptance test, and then I have to go to a user test, and it has to go into production. You can orchestrate that entire process. So we're in the middle of building the use cases, and this is the most critical part of an integration. It's not what APIs do we have, it's what are the things that we think you're going to use it for, and your voice is critical. So if you'd like to participate in this process, please drop me an email, let me know. I will introduce you to our peers in the Atomic organization that are documenting the use cases. We have a very powerful SDK already in Harvest that we can build to do integrations with, that if you're using CA release automation, and that we're going to do very similar processes for that. But if you'd like to participate in this, please let us know. It's an innovation area that we're looking at to build you a software change and automated deployment. So you can either use our release automation tool or you can use Atomic, depending on whatever best fits for your company. So a little more on the Atomic One platform. So as we think about this modern software factory where we have work items, which is requests for enhancements, features, changes, user stories, they come in, your developer's working on them, you check in and out your code into Harvest SCM, then you pass it off to CI. CI is continuous integration, so you've noted that the change happened, you automatically kicked off your build. You went to CD, which is continuous delivery, which says now I need to deliver it to my test system, then you fire off your continuous testing scripts, and you do this on a regular basis, and then you deploy to production. So that whole automated option, once you pick up, and it gets blurry, whether it fits into the CI/CD or the CT or the DTP section. So I put those down there so to let you know that it depends on the automation level that you're looking for. So you can do everything from continuous integration through deployment to production, or you can do just part of it. You can just do the deployment to production. So we'd like to hear what you need, what your use cases are, how you use Harvest, and if you do have Atomic in your shop or you're interested in an Atomic release automation, let us know. We'd like to hear your use cases so that we can make sure that when we build the integration that it will work for customers like yourself. Don't forget, the Harvest documentation is all online and it's live. So if you have the ability to create a support ID with CA, so you have the support ID, you can put comments in the documentation. You know what I hear when we do surveys with customers, they always say, well, I can't find stuff in the documentation. We have a dedicated team of tech writers that we call DocOps, and they are out there and they're looking. If you post a comment in DocOps, they're responsible for it. That is just like they create a user story out of it for their team. They participate in the Agile process. So if you see something that doesn't make sense in our documentation, if you're not a native English speaker as a first language and it doesn't make sense to you, please let us know. Post a comment either in the documentation, cut a case with our support organization, and say that we need to improve our documentation. That is the #1 best way that we can work together to improve the documentation. Harvest documentation, Harvest has been there for a long time. We've gone through lots of revisions of it. Nothing's ever perfect. It's just like software. If you're using it, it can always stand to be changed. So help us, help you, keep it alive, keep it moving. That's the second part of that message is, we don't advise that you print PDFs out of our DocOps solution. You certainly can. It is available to you, but those are fixed in time. And if we're changing our documentation every few sprints online, you will miss those changes. So please be part of the process. Please, if you have a support ID, log into DocOps, make your comments and changes directly. Our DocOps team will pick those up. Or if you don't, get somebody to create a case with us, and then we will deal with it that way. But just as we're working hard on our software, we want to make sure that the documentation keeps up to date and keeps constantly changing, answering the questions for you quickly and easily. And don't forget, this is all Google searchable. It's all public. There's nothing secured. If you don't have an ID, your developers, every one of your developers should have a hot link to this documentation somewhere in their system, because they no longer have to link to a PDF manual on a server someplace. All right, now it's my great pleasure to end my session as product manager and turn it over to the people you really want to hear from, which is the engineering team. So we have Balu and Malik. They're going to run you through a high-level presentation of what the cross-project merge is, and then do a demonstration of the prototype that we have. Malik and Balu, are you ready?
Yes, Steve. Yeah, Mali will start it today. Yeah, we are ready. Mali is going to pick up now. Hope you are audible.
All right. You want me to move the slides, or do you want me to have Balu do the slides?
Mali, please share the control with Mali.
All right. Mali, you are now presenter.
All right. Hello everyone, this is Malik from Harvest team, and I would like to take you through the enhanced version of cross-project merge, the marquee feature of the upcoming release. Hope my voice is clear. Please don't hesitate to stop me in case I'm not clear. Okay, so first of all, what is cross-project merge? As many of you know, cross-project merge is a process in Harvest which helps you to bring the changes from one project to another. And typically this is something that you guys do at the end of your release to sync up your project. Okay, so first of all, what is the drawback in the current cross-project merge process? Okay, so firstly, there is no visual representation of the merge. Currently, when you select your source and target, it's just a blind merge, as in it happens under the hood, and you don't know what exactly is going on between the two projects when they sync up. Right, so firstly, there is no visual representation, so you can't imagine how the target is going to be affected when there is no visual representation. All right, so secondly, there is no way to select versions from within a package. So if you select a package, you are bound to select all the versions in the package, and that may not be something that you desire. There could be a single version in a package which is a problematic one, which could pose problems. So you want to keep that and take the rest of the changes. So that is not possible in the current cross-project merge process. So that is one limitation. And there is no way to validate the versions that you choose or the packages that you choose before you actually commit them to your repositories. So you select 10 packages from your source and try to merge them into your target. And there could be one of them which is a problematic one, which could error out, right? So currently there is no way to select partial versions from a package or there is no way to validate them before you actually commit to the repository until you click finish. And lastly, there is no way to monitor the merge progress, as in if you have, say, 100 versions in your source packages and you're trying to merge all of them into your target, right? And the merge process gets stuck at 90th item or something like that. So there is no way currently to monitor the progress, which will tell you at which point of merge you are in. It could take 10 minutes, 15 minutes based on the size of your repository. But currently there is no way to measure the progress of the merge. So let's see how the new enhanced version of cross-project merge would handle these scenarios. So let's move on to the newer version. So in the newer version, instead of a single select, currently what you do is select your source, your target, and click finish, right? So it's just a one-step process. So now we have defined a 4-stage process in which in the first step you just select your source and your target and the options on your merge options. And then in your stage 2, you actually have a preview of your source and target repositories. And you actually see how the changes are going to happen in your target repository when you, as in when you select changes from your source. So it's just like a folder merge that you see in any of the merge tools. So you have your source and target there, and you keep picking the versions from the source, and they get merged into the target. We will see that in the demo. But that is the new stage that we introduced in the cross-project merge process. And there is one more stage that is called validation stage, stage 3 in the diagram in the process flow. So wherein you validate all the selections that you have done in stage 2. So in stage 2, you actually select the versions and they get merged into the target, and then you actually do a validation before clicking the execute or commit. So that is an additional check which happens before you commit your changes to the repository, so that you don't see any surprises. All the error checks will be done in the validation phase itself, and you will be given a heads up there and then in stage 3. So that 2 and 3 are actually cyclic, as in you can go back to stage 2, do a correction, then come back, do validation again, and so on and so forth. And when you are sure that all your selections pass the validation, you can then click execute, and that commits the changes to the repository, target repository. So this 4-stage process, whatever we have introduced now, helps us to have a preview of the merge. It is more transparent. It helps you to select a partial versions from your packages, in case you figure out that there are certain versions which could create problems, or you actually found out that certain versions could create problems in the validation step. You can actually discard them and proceed with the merge with the rest of the versions, rather than holding back the whole cross-project merge process just because of one version or a couple of versions. So let's proceed to the features of the 4-step new process that we have introduced. So this is how a merge preview would look like. If you look at the first screenshot, right, so you are seeing the source and target repositories, a side-by-side comparison, just like how you see in any of the compare tools. You actually keep pulling the changes from your source to the target, and the target tree adapts to that change. And that is pretty much transparent there. And then as you go on selecting the version from your source, you see that the target tree is adapting to it, and that is how your final target project is going to look like. And the second screenshot is the second new stage that we introduced, which is the validation stage, in which actually all the versions which are validated, which passed all the validations would be highlighted in green, and all the ones that failed the validations would be highlighted in red. So in the screenshot, of course, you don't see any red ones there, but this is how the validation screen is going to look like. And finally, when you click finish, all the changes are going to be committed to the repository. So this is basically the preview and the validation phases, whatever we have introduced newly. Let's see how they solve the problem. So the two major advantages of the new version of CPM is selective merge or priority merge. Selective merge is wherein you wanted to choose only certain versions or certain folders or a part of your total code tree, right? And you want to merge them into the target. For example, let's consider the example below, wherein you have your project and it has n number of components. So the figure shows component 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? And there are n number of packages in your source project, package 1, 2, 3, and 4, in which the package 1 actually made changes to all the components. In package 2, you have done changes to only component 1, 3, and 5, and so on and so forth. Right. So now when you actually wanted to build only, if you are interested to build only component 1, you don't have to pull in the changes of the complete changes of package 1, because package 1 has changes in almost all the components. So if you are trying to build only component 1, if you are interested to grab only the changes of component 1, that is not currently possible with the existing CPM process. But with the new enhanced version, you will have this capability of pulling in the changes pertaining to a particular folder in your source tree. So that helps you to merge changes pertaining to a particular component in your source code. So that helps. That is something called a selective merge. Priority merge is pretty much similar to that, in which you wanted to merge all the content changes, but you define a merge strategy. Let's say, for example, I want to merge all the refactors first, then make sure that my build is going through fine. Then I would like to bring all the code changes. Then I would like to bring all the documentation changes, something like that. So you can define your merge strategy, and based on that, you can define the priority for each of the change and do it in several stages rather than doing it in one single step, like how we are doing right now. You can split the whole cross-project merge into different stages. So that is all about selective merge or priority merge. Coming to the there are actually more features in it. Like I said, validation helps you in validating all your selections before you actually do the commit. Right now, when you do a commit, it is a partial commit. Like if you say if you have 100 versions in your source packages and 90th version failed, so the CPM would actually commit all the 89 versions and would fail at 90. So typically then what would the merge engineers do is to delete all the versions and then do reverse of what the CPM has done. And you guys must be facing difficulty in doing that also. So the validation step helps you to get rid of all these problems. It actually does a validation before you actually commit the changes to the repository, and that helps you to gain confidence that the merge is going to succeed. And not just that, the validation also helps in identifying the number of M tags. So that gives you an estimate of the merge work that needs to be done by the engineer. So in the validation page, you will also see how many M tags will be created. So we will see that in the demo, and that helps you to estimate your work. And apart from that, we also have more added support for path refactoring in the enhanced version of CPM. Currently, there are many limitations when it comes to refactoring of paths. Refactoring of items works fine even today, but then refactoring of paths has a lot of limitations, and all that will be relaxed in the next version. And of course, it has a lot of bug fixes. And the last but not the least, it also has a host of performance improvements in it. So you will find a drastic change in the way the CPM executes and the time taken by the CPM process with the new enhanced version of CPM. With that, I would like to go into the demo, and then go with the Q&A. Okay.
Here.
Hope everyone is able to see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. All right. So I have two projects here. So let me say that I have one project for each of my Scrum teams, and right now I just have one out here, but you can have as many as you want, right? So and each one will have a number of development packages in it. Every feature that this particular Scrum team is going to handle are actually defined in these packages. And then I have one release project, which is just for doing the release. So it's like I do all the development in the team_Panthers project. Then at the end of each cycle, I merge all my changes into my release project and then proceed to a release build or final release. So let's say we have a scenario like this, all right? And my team Panthers has a lot of development done in each of these packages. If you actually go and expand, you will find a lot of versions in this. Okay. So now let me go and merge all the development that this team has done into my release project. Okay, so I have one empty package created here. And if I do a cross-project merge on this, I'll pick the Team Panthers project. Then I'll go for development state. And now I'm just going to pick all the packages here. And this is up to you. I'm just going with some options here. So now whatever you're seeing is something that is introduced newly. So this is the preview screen wherein you will see the source project on your right side and the target project on your left side, and the list of changes that the source project has undergone. So all the changes will be highlighted in bold in both the trees. And you have a list of buttons here. The first one is to select the change from the source to the target. The second one simply reloads both the trees from the repository. Okay. For example, if you have done some work and you just want to discard it, start afresh, you can always click refresh here. And these two buttons are just navigation buttons that helps you to navigate between different modifications that are there, different changes that are there in the source project. So now let me define my merge strategy like this. I'll go with my refactors first, then kick off a build, make sure that my refactor changes are working fine. Then I'll bring all my code changes, and then I'll bring all my documentation changes. So in the first cut, I would like to get all my refactor changes. So if you see, this is a refactor change because you see that the name is changed when compared to the source. In the source, it is accdao.java, and in the target, it is accountant.do.java. So I'll just grab this refactor change. Again, this is also a refactor change, so I'm going to grab this one as well. And just that, rest all are actually code changes. If you find the name is same but an increment in the version, that indicates that it is actually a content change. So I'm just going to skip rest of them. I just want to get only the refactors in the first cut. So I'll grab these two versions, right? And the validation says that both of them have passed. So I'll just go click. And so this is the validation screen wherein you will find the same trees, whatever you are finding in the preview pane. It's just that all the past validations will be highlighted in green color and all the failed ones will be shown up in red. And in this page as well, you just have the navigation buttons. right? And the button that opens the log. So I'm just going to go and commit these changes first. Then I'll again try to grab the remaining changes. In my second phase, I would like to grab all the content changes. So this step is going to be the same. I'll select all of them because anyway I'll have an option to pick whatever I want in the next step in this one. Okay. So you can see that these two are disabled now because these changes have already merged into the target. So only the pending changes will be highlighted in this particular screen. So that helps you to identify how many changes are pending, actually. So docs I will take care at the end because that is not of that importance to me. So I'll just go and grab the content changes. So this is a content change. This is again a content change. One more. And this is something that is added newly here. You don't find it in target. So this is a new file change that is coming in. So I'm going to select this one as well. So totally I've selected 4 changes. And when I go to my validation page, it's going to say how many of them have passed and how many of them would actually result in an M tag. You can see an M tag here. So out of the 4 changes that I've grabbed, one of them is going to result in a M tag. And when you click finish, as you can see, there is one M tag created under this package. I'll resolve it at a later point of time. But for now, I would like to go and pull the remaining changes as well. And I'm going to select the same options again. So this time, if you see, even these things are not highlighted. Only the ones that we see here is the docs folder, which is actually a move. Because as you can see, this docs is actually linked to this one out here. So what this representation, these arrow marks say is that when you actually try to bring this change to the target, it's going to affect this particular folder, and it's going to bring the folder all the way under the repo. So if we just select this, it's going to hit this one, push it all the way to docs. Let me just undo it once again, undo it once, and then try to grab it again. So if you see, if you select this change, it's going to push this one all the way here. So that is one change. What is still pending is these set of binary files, which I can always generate on my target, but still I will choose to get them to the target so that my merge will be complete. So this time I've grabbed all the pending changes, and when I click finish, it merges all the changes to the target. Now if I try to launch my cross-project merge again with the same set of packages, it simply says that there are no versions found to merge. So this says that you have already merged all the versions that are in these packages, and there are no more left. So in this way, you can do something called a priority merge, where you can define different priority strategies and then merge all the versions that you are interested in the first phase. And then in different phases, you can actually define different strategies and then proceed with the cross-project merge in multiple stages rather than doing it in one single go, which would also help you to actually identify the problems much better than what you're doing right now. So that's all I have. I think we are open for Q&A.
Thank you. That was an amazing demo. Very, very powerful. I like the way that it's broken up and you can do work in logical units. So I'm going to ask one thing here before we open up for Q&A. Don't forget to vote in the community. So whether you're hearing this live or on a recording, now that version 13 complete is getting settled, we're going to turn back to the community and start hammering through those lists in the backlog on what we can do, what we can't, what we're going to put into the official backlog. That means it's going to be moved to as part of our development process or do the reviews. So now is the time to make sure that you have voted. So go look at all of them. There's a lot of ideas out there in the community. And to help us sort through them and figure out which is the most important for you, please vote on them. So that's part of the community. So if you get a chance, please go do that. The next couple of weeks would be perfect as we finalize all of our testing on this version 13 and the new cross-project merge. Okay, questions? So now is time to either unmute yourself and come on if you are on the phone, or put in a question in the Q&A section.
Yes, thanks, Steve. So so if you are on the phone line, please feel free to hit #6 to unmute your line to ask your questions. And again, if you're not on the phone line and you're using the audio broadcast, please use the Q&A box right in the WebEx. We'll give you guys a minute to do that. And also, as always, a reminder that we are recording this session, and I will be getting the recording as well as the presentation up in the community either later today or tomorrow at some point. So if you or one of your colleagues missed part of it or missed all of it, you can share it with your colleagues that way.
You're welcome to ask questions on any part of the presentation, the roadmap, working with Atomic, on the new cross-project merge, or any other questions that you have out there. Now is your time. Len, I think we have a bunch of shy attendees.
So I guess that being the case, we can wrap things up. Again, like I said, I'll be getting the replay out in the community. So if you have any questions that come up after you sit back and think about this a little bit, please feel free to ask the questions on that replay post, and then I'll make sure Steve and the team see them. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you, Malik, Balu. Great presentation. Appreciate it. Thanks, Len. Bye.